Before we can finish up our images in Photoshop, I want to render out some ZDF passes so I can add some depth of field. So to do that, you need to change your VRI settings slightly. So first you want to increase the size of your image, just double it. So for example, I had 2000 pixels on the long edge, now I'm going to have 4000. I'm going to also disable the save file option so I don't accidentally overwrite my original renders. And then I'm going to turn off the lights. I just want this done very quickly. And we only need the depth information, nothing more. Right, I'm also going to use a flat gray override material. Turn off the anti-aliasing filter and make sure you reduce the adaptive DMC image sampler max subdivs to 1. This way you will have no anti-aliasing on the image whatsoever. So that's why we're rendering at the double size, so we can reduce the size later on and get a nice smooth result. Alright, you can also turn off the indirect illumination. And that's pretty much it, and you can render out your ZDF. Okay, just add the render element. And let's set the ZDF maximum to 700 centimeters. And that's good. And just render it out. Right, as you can see, it renders very quickly. And you just save these ZDF renders as 16-bit TIFF files, and we're going to use them later on in Photoshop. Just make one of these for each of your render. Let's open our rendered images in Photoshop. I'm going to start with this wooden one. Alright. So first I'm going to duplicate the layer by pressing Ctrl J, just to make sure I have the original saved just in case. I'm also going to resave the image as a PSD file so I don't overwrite the original accidentally. Okay. And now we can safely work on the image. So first step I'm going to adjust on the curves slightly for the image. So I'm going to add an adjustment layer, choose curves, and boost the midtones a bit. Maybe add some contrast by giving the curve an S shape. Right, like that. Next, let's add another adjustment layer. And this time it's going to be black and white. Right. I'm going to use this layer to add some overall contrast to the image. Make it less colorful and more punchy. So something like this overlay or soft light or hard light. One of these modes should work fine. Okay, let's use the overlay. I'm just going to reduce the opacity and maybe leave it like that. Okay, let's add another layer. Let's add a color balance layer. Right. So what I want to do is I want to make the midtones a bit warmer. Same for the highlights. Just increase the reds and yellows to make it warmer. Now let's make the shadows slightly darker. Not darker, but slightly colder. Okay, I think that's fine. Right, let's add another adjustment layer. And this time it's going to be hue saturation. I'm going to bring down the saturation just a bit. Maybe increase the lightness by 1 or 2. And just to make the image a bit calmer. Okay, and I think we need to add a background image in the window. So let's open up our Firefox. Let's look for some sort of landscape. I'm just gonna set it to larger than my render size, for example, larger than 4 megapixels. And just find a nice image that would maybe work. So let's look at our render to see from which side the sun is coming. So we need an image where the sun is from the side. Just look through these until you find something you like. Let's use this British landscape maybe. Let's just try it out and see how it looks. Just copy it, and what you want to do is you want to select your layer, select your image, accept the alpha channel by control clicking here on the alpha, and press Ctrl J to duplicate it. Alright, and now when you paste your landscape in a layer below it, it should look like this. You can move it around and it's only visible in the window. Maybe let's scale it a bit smaller. Okay. And let's increase the contrast for our background. Like this. Right. Also gonna try and add photo filter adjustment layer. Okay, let's set it to some cool color like this blue one here. Maybe let's use the gradient tool to mask some areas of the image. I want this colder light to come in from this right window here. So I'm going to use a circular gradient or radial gradient and just draw on a mask like this. Okay, that's nice. And what else? Let's add another curves layer. Make it slightly lighter. Alright. That's nice. Let's add some vignetting. I'm gonna just paint it on by hand. I'm gonna use a black brush with very low hardness and high radius, a large size. So just paint it on the corners where you would expect the vignetting to happen. Okay, maybe like that, and let's blur it. You need to blur it quite a bit to see the effect. Okay, and let's reduce the opacity. Okay, and let's add one more layer and make some smaller black areas. I'm leaving out this right lower corner because it's so bright it would look a bit weird if it had some black on top of it. Okay, and let's blur a bit less, like so, and reduce the opacity again. Okay, I'm gonna merge these two black layers together, and I'm gonna control the opacity of them together. Okay, I think that's fine. Alright, let's add some light coming in from the window, something like that. Let's add a new layer above the adjustment layers. Using the polygon lasso tool, let's select this area from the window all the way to this corner of the highlights here. Just make a selection somewhat like this. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. It's probably not going to be. And just fill it with a white color. Like that. Alright, let's reduce the opacity. Let's set it to overlay. And let's blur it with some motion blur. First, let's adjust the angle. I want it slightly offset from this original angle. And blur it. Okay, good. Let's duplicate it, change it from overlay to normal, and reduce the opacity. I think 10% might be enough. Right, and for this overlay layer, I'm also going to reduce the opacity. Maybe switch them around, see what looks better. Right, let's blur it a bit more. Let's try 7 by 15. Okay, good. I think that's nice. Let's add some highlights for these lantern lights. Let's make a new layer. Let's use the lasso tool to grab this area around the lights, and then pick them out by using them. Okay, select color range. Just click on one of the lights, recheck your preview, and you can shift click on the colors you want to add. So click on some of the lights. Alright, so they're selected, and duplicate, just copy merged and paste in place. Right, I'm gonna hide this black layer and do this procedure again. So copy merged and paste in place. And this way I'm not getting the dark result I was getting previously. I think I want to move these lights up on top of the blacks. Okay, so that's going to be original. So name it so we can see it and duplicate. Alright, for the second layer I'm going to blur it slightly. Gaussian blur. 3.5 pixels. Duplicate the layer and blur it a bit more. Okay, let's merge these together and let's reduce the opacity a bit. So now we have some soft glow going on here, and it's nice. And maybe let's add some diagonal highlights as well. And duplicate the lights layer, and I'm gonna blur it with motion blur. Let's set angle to 45 and increase the distance a bit. Okay, good. It's pretty much invisible at the moment, so let's duplicate the layer a couple of times. So like this. Okay, good. Let's merge these together. Right, and now they're in a single layer. Okay, good. Let's use the eraser and smooth out the transitions from the light to nothing. Okay, like that. Let's make them slightly shorter for these lanterns that are further away. Okay, that's good. And let's duplicate the light layer again. And this time I'm gonna blur it in the opposite direction. So -45. And duplicate the layer a few times. Okay, and merge them together. And now adjust the shape with the eraser. We have some slightly more interesting highlights going on. Okay, let's check how it looks with overlay and how it looks with normal. I think it looks better with overlay. It doesn't lose the dark values so much. So try to set those to overlay. I think the lights will be fine. Right, and finally let's add some soft glow by selecting the highlights in the window. So select color range and pick some highlights from the window. Okay, just copy merged and paste, and I'm gonna blur these with Gaussian blur. Okay. And let's set them to overlay as well. Maybe soft light. Let's set them to soft light. Okay, so basically the image looks pretty much okay. And what else? Maybe let's blur the background slightly. blur it slightly. Okay, wrong layer. Let's go to our background. And let's blur it by 0.3 pixels. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's save it. Alright, so let's copy everything and create a new file and just paste it in. Okay. So let's increase the size to 4000 pixels. I'm also gonna open my ZDEF pass. Increase the contrast by using the image auto contrast. Just copy the image, go back to your enlarged render, duplicate the layer and create a mask. Right now go to channels and paste in the mask channel your alpha map, I mean the ZDEF pass, and control click on this image here. Just control click, hide the mask and delete the mask. Now you have your selection. I'm gonna use the Frischleft Lenskare plugin to add some depth of field. Right, so first thing I want to do is I want to define my sharp zone. So change the show to sharp zone and adjust the focus depth where you want it. Example, I want it somewhere over here. Let's play with the blur radius. Okay, maybe let's leave it like that. Let's check the preview, it looks good. Actually, not much difference seen here, but that's alright. We don't want the effect to be too strong. Okay, I'm gonna test it out and see how that looks. So just press enter. Okay. And you have to wait for a slight moment until it finishes. And you can compare the original version with slightly blurred. Okay, that's fine. I just want this effect to be very subtle. Since you're using a wide angle lens, it would not be too strong anyway. Right, let's reduce the size back to 2000. Let's try bilinear. It looks like we need to add some slight sharpening. First I'm going to use the lens correction. Maybe give it some slight chromatic aberrations. Let's zoom in so we can see what's happening here. Okay, so some slightly green edges. Maybe purple. Let's try some other options. It looks like green was the best. Okay. And finally, let's add unsharp mask. So let's set it to maybe 75% and use 0.6 pixels. Okay, and let's use the dodge and burn to bring out some of the highlights even more. So let's use dodge with a very low exposure value, like 10 or 11, and bring out some of the highlights here, maybe inside the cabinets. Okay, boost these lanterns as well. Maybe area here. Just to make it a bit more interesting. And I think this render is finished. Okay, so copy it, go back to your PSD file and paste on top. So now you can compare the results. Some slight blur, depth of field, boosted highlights, and some slight chromatic aberrations, just to make it a bit more realistic. And let's save it. So that's it for the wooden version. I'm not going to show you the other camera angles since it's pretty much the same process. But let's do the black version now. Let's just close this and open up the black render. Alright, let's get started. Duplicate the layer and let's save it as a PSD file. Okay, that's done. Let's start by adding some adjustment layers. Okay, let's start with curves. As before, I'm going to boost the contrast a bit. Okay, I'm just going to boost the midtones and the shadows. Alright, that's good. Now let's add another layer, this time black and white. Let's increase the highlights a bit, maybe. Okay, that's fine. Let's try some. Okay, maybe soft light. That's fine. Good. I'm gonna go back to my original layer and maybe try some shadows and highlights on it. Seems that I'm losing some highlight details a bit too much, so I'm going to increase it to maybe 2% or so. Alright, so it's nice, but I think it's a bit too warm. Let's add a photo filter layer. And just cool it down with this filter here. It's good. Now let's open our wood render, and I'm gonna take the background image from that. And I'm gonna add it over here just below this layer. Okay, pick your alpha channel, duplicate, and that's fine. Let's add some color balance adjustments. Hide that photo filter for now and add color balance adjustment later. Okay. Like that. And go back to your photo filter, enable it, and let's try bringing it only in from the right side. Okay, fine. I'm going to take my color balance and I'm going to reduce the opacity slightly. That's good. Right. Let's add a new layer. Let's paint in some vignetting. So blur the first layer quite a bit. Reduce the opacity. Add another layer. Paint in some smaller blacks. And blur it a bit less. Okay. Let's reduce the opacity. And merge them together. Right. Not quite happy with my color balance layer. Let's try and fix that. I think it's too red. Let's make it a bit more yellow. Okay. Right, so I'm gonna copy everything merged. Paste. And maybe let's try the high pass filter. Okay, like that. Let's desaturate it. Put it as an overlay. Okay, let's adjust the opacity, something like this maybe. It boosts the local contrast quite a bit. I like the effect, so I'm gonna leave it on. Now let's add some light coming in from the window. We can just we can pretty much copy these layers here. Right. Just delete this part. Set it as overlay first, and then duplicate and set to normal. That's good. And let's add the light effects as well. Just copy them from this other image. Okay. Let's maybe make them a bit stronger by duplicating. And set to overlay. That's fine. I'm gonna add another adjustment layer. And I'm gonna reduce the saturation a bit. So maybe by 5, something like that. And that's good. Now let's close this image here. And let's save this one. And now we can try and do the same motion blur trick. Just copy everything, create a new image, paste, increase the size, and try resizing it with the bilinear type. Okay, so create new image, paste. Let's increase it to 4000. Okay, so where's our Z depth? Here it is. Just use the auto contrast, copy it, and paste in the layer mask channel. Okay, so delete the mask. Let's run the same settings we did before with Lenskar. Check how it looks, and it saved the settings from the previous image, so we can just hit enter and it's gonna give us the same result. Okay, that's fine. Let's reduce the size back to 2000. Right, looking good. Let's add lens correction, just some purple fringing. Sharpen it up. Let's play with the dodge tool a bit. Just boost some of the highlights you want. Okay, since we have lots of blacks here, we can probably try to increase the midtones as well. Okay, now copy it and go back to your original and paste it. And that's pretty much it for the post-production.